So, book 2, No Pity for the Dead. And we finished the first one the other day, so now I gotta start ordering the rest of them. There's 8 books in the series as it stands thus far. And it's also given me an idea for an if-then that you'll see in a couple days. I had a really good idea for an if-then if I can pull it off. I need to figure some stuff out. So, welcome to the D. Louise book series. I'm Christina, K-R-I-S-T-I-N-A. This is where we read books, talk about books, no special effects, no theme music, none of that fancy stuff going on here. And, if you could please hit the like and subscribe, I'd appreciate it. One day I would like to see that miracle number pop up. So anyways, we've got it reminds me a lot of the Sarah Brandt, Victoria Thompson series. And there are some differences, but it reminds me of Sarah Brandt, but Sarah Brandt is 30 years later. Smoke. 30 years later after this. This takes place just after the Civil War in San Francisco. Let me see something. Alright, she's ignoring me. So it does. It reminds me a lot of Victoria Thompson's series. But she's alright, so let me back up here. She's a nurse. She practices nursing. It's in San Francisco in June of 1867 is when this book takes place. Addie is her housekeeper. Barbara is her ward. And she's also half Chinese, and she also gets lots of ridicule from the neighborhood. A lot of bigotry, biasm, racism goes on. Then we have Detective Nicholas Greaves, who will probably potentially be her love interest. She also has a detective, Mr. Smith, researching her husband. She wants to find proof that he's officially deceased. Once she finds that proof that he's officially deceased, she can move on with her life and mourn him properly. And this will become, I will mention this, spoiler alert, she does get some news. And whether she shares this news with Mr. Greaves or not is another story. That we will have a pet peeve in the next book if something doesn't happen. Taylor is his assistant. Then we have Officer Mulcahy, who hangs around. We have the Undertaker is Massey. Dr. Harris is the coroner. And we don't see Tom Davies in this book. We saw him in the last book. He is her brother-in-law. And then we have Grace Hutchinson, who is a friend of theirs. And this whole book, well, most of the book, the beginning of the book anyway, Marianne Kelly is about to give birth any minute now. And her brother is Dan Matthew. And Dan Matthew has convinced Owen, who is a 14-year-old boy, who hangs out at Miss Davies' house hoping for food. He would like to be living in her house, but due to propriety reasons, he's a male in a house of females, it wouldn't look good. So she's constantly feeding him, but he can't stay there. Anyway, his friend Dan Matthews convinced him that there was gold in the cellar, and they were digging up in the cellar, and they find a dead body. And who killed the dead person? And who is the dead person? Did Dan recognize the person in the grave or not? Because he got spooked and ran off. So there's a lot. There's several different, the author goes that way. She points the finger at almost all of the male characters in this book, except, of course, Mr. Graves and Mr. Mulcahy. And it's a very layered plot. Then someone is attacking Miss Davies, telling her to, stay away from the case, shooting at her. A couple of different females get shot at during the book. It wasn't as multi-layered as the last book. It is layered, but it's not. I didn't find it as complex as the other book, as the first one. But there is complexity here, and she points the finger at all these different people, and sometimes you believe her though in some of those guys because you really believe that those people could be it. And in the last book, she did one of those peoples, and then it turned out to be a person close to that person. This is different. And a lot of these guys come off as pompous. And I think it's another thing is that I'm after indulging, and there's another series, Bell, Belli, hers, and then the Victoria Thompson one, and there was another one I think down there. There's been a couple of them that have all taken place in New York, and I'm having a hard time with the San Francisco geography, and the families that were out there. I'm not too familiar with the names with San Francisco as I am with New York, and so it may take a book or two, but so there's all this stuff going on, and she's pointing the finger at all these different suspects, and all these different suspects have legitimate reasons to want the guy in the cellar deceased. Then someone attempts Miss Davies a couple of different times. They attempt to kill her, but then Dan, spoiler alert, the guy that was helping Owen dig up the gold in the basement, he's found dead. And was it accident or was it murder? You have to read the book to find out. But I do like the where is it? I just saw them. Hold on a second. One of my favorite parts of Victoria Thompson's books were the author notes at the end. On January 8, 1863, San Francisco's Alta newspaper ran an editorial decrying 12 years of hill flattening. The efforts to ease transit across town, destroying much of San Francisco's natural beauty in the process. The paper's complaints had little effect. Rycon Hill was next in the developer's sights, their plans driven by a desire for easy access to the Pacific Mail wharves at the south end of 2nd Street. It didn't hurt that the man most responsible for demanding the cut happened to own property near the city end of the road and expected to profit from the increased worth of his land. The wealthy homeowners atop weren't happy at all, expecting, as the Nashes did in this book, the value of the property would plummet once 2nd Street turned into an ugly gorge. The homeowners' complaints had no more effects on the eventual outcome on the Alta's editorial. Their opponents would prove to be more political and socially connected and unstoppable. In 1873, the installation of the first cable car line would thankfully act as a disincentive to fund future grading projects. Most of my characters in this series are fictional, but no pity for the dead. I've included 2 very real individuals. And one of those individuals I did recognize. So you'll have to... One of those individuals is a New Yorker! So that's why I knew who he was, because he's a New Yorker. And he's a famous New Yorker. And I was thinking, there's this boat. And I was thinking, he's still young in his career here, because this is the 1860s. But I know the exact date that he will die. 1912, April, I believe. 1912. I think I've got that right. Or 14, 12. I think it's 12. That's a hint to who the character was. He very, very small, brief guest appearance. Very small. The other guy, I have no clue. But, like I said, she points the finger at all these other gentlemen. And you believe her. They have good motives. At one point, Cecilia writes them down. This guy, A, blah, blah, blah. B, blah, blah, blah. C, D. She writes them down. They have lists. They have motives. But who really did it? And why? And who knows? And could there be an imposter in their midst? Could there be a fake identity in their midst? Imposter, fake identity, same thing. And will Celia make her confession to Greaves? And how many books will we have to wait for her to make her confession to Greaves? We shall have to see. And where does she get all her money from? They're living on borderline. They're not poor, but they're not well off. Sarah Brandt was, she started off at one end of the spectrum, or actually in the middle of the spectrum, and then she moved uptown real quick. Well, 20-something books. I will forever mourn the loss of Victoria Thompson. But these are good. These are good. We're gonna get to it. We got this one to go. So watch for it in a couple days. They're good. Have a good one.